Revealed, the heartwarming journey of a three-time virgin slave, transforming lives in 1847 Brazil. Maria stood in the harsh sunlight, her heart heavy yet ablaze with hope. At just 25, she was no stranger to struggle. As a three-time virgin slave, each layer of her past shaped her a tapestry of resilience woven in the fabric of her being. In her small community in rural Brazil, people whispered her name with reverence. They saw her sweat, her tireless work ethic, and her unfaltering spirit that defied the oppressive weight of their local landowner's thumb. On that hot afternoon, with the looming drought casting a shadow over her family's farm, anxiety rippled through the community like a thunderous storm. Maria gazed toward the distant hills. There lay their hopes, their dreams, and perhaps a glimmer of freedom. Her mind drifted to possibilities, a life unshackled from despair. The town square, usually filled with laughter, now hummed with tension. Faces were drawn, and worry creased foreheads like deep furrows in worn soil. Families gathered, seeking strength in numbers, yet voices began to rise. Should they fight the drought together, or would they allow despair to drown their spirits? Maria felt a spark ignite within her. As the murmurs grew louder, she stepped forward, compelled to speak. "We must unite," she said, her voice steady despite the shaking in her hands. "Alone, fear will consume us, but together, we can create our destiny." Gasps rippled through the crowd, and her piercing resolve turned heads. Conversations shifted, hope blended with trepidation. She proposed an agricultural cooperative, a radical idea that could either save them or tear them apart. Maria's pulse quickened. It felt like stepping into the unknown, venturing into a storm of fears yet wanting to breathe fresh air. Back at home, her ambitions clashed with her brother's disbelief. Tears glistened in her eyes as they argued fiercely. "You've lost touch with us, Maria," he yelled, frustration spilling from his lips. Each word felt like a stone hitting her heart, leaving her gasping for air. How could she balance her dreams with her family's expectations? Before they could seek resolution, her confrontation with the landowner turned sour. The man, cold and uncaring, sneered, "You think you can challenge me? Remember your place, girl." Maria's heart pounded, a mix of anger and despair rising from within her. She realized the depth of the injustice around her, a system built to oppress her spirit. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With the sun dipping low, painting the weary villagers' faces in soft oranges, Maria's heart brimmed with determination. If she could only find a way to show them their strength, their worth. A shocking revelation about her own lineage would soon stir the waters, promising to alter everything she once believed. Could freedom be within reach, or would she find herself standing alone? Facing her community, the weight of their expectations bore down on her shoulders. The question lingered in the air like the scent of rain before a downpour: could one woman truly challenge the chains of her past and ignite a transformation? The sun began to set, and as shadows danced around her, an undeniable shift was brewing, leaving hearts ablaze with uncertain promise. The next day dawned bright and clear, almost mocking the strife that weighed on Maria's heart. Tension stung the air as she prepared to present her plan to the villagers. Standing in front of her small home, she breathed deep, attempting to quell the mixture of excitement and dread boiling in her stomach. As she made her way to the town square, the sun glinted off her chalky skin, dust swirling around her feet. The familiar sounds of daily life dripped with a heavy silence, an unspoken barrier of fear hovering between the villagers. They gathered in their usual spots, eyes cast downward, exchanging furtive glances that spoke of doubt. Maria arrived, her heart racing. The gathered crowd watched her with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Today, she began, her voice firm, we can decide our fate together. She gestured to the land stretching around them. This land can still bear fruit. We will form an agricultural cooperative. We can share our resources, our knowledge. Together, we can thrive. The murmurs began again, rising like the wind through the trees. Some nodded, encouragement flickering in their eyes. Others looked at her as if she had lost her mind. Her brother stood at the back, arms crossed, face set in disapproval, a fortress of continued doubt. What do you know about farming, Maria? You've spent years battling your fate. Why should we trust you? A heavy-set man stepped forward, his voice booming like thunder. Gasps echoed around the square. Her heart sank. Because I have lived it, she replied, determination sharpening her words. I have seen what it means to struggle and to rise against adversity. We can build something new, something worth fighting for. Yet doubt still loomed like a heavy fog. The fear of failure charged the air. A few heads began to shake, whispers of what if echoed through the assembly. Maria stepped closer, eyeing each of them and seeing reflections of her own struggles. She thought of her family's farm, their dreams suffocating under the weight of someone else's greed. What if we cling to this fear? What if we lose everything? But what if we unite? What if we become stronger than we've ever been? Something stirred in the crowd. A soft voice piped up, but how? A young woman, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears, stepped forward. Share your skills, Maria urged. We each have strengths, from gardening to trade. We'll learn and grow together. Imagine children laughing under the trees. Imagine enough food for everyone, enough freedom to thrive. A ripple of hope began to weave through the villagers' faces. But just as Maria felt the tide of support swell, the landowner's guard stepped into view, fanning out like dark shadows. The oppressive weight of their presence knifed through the air. What kind of foolishness is this? One guard sneered, his hand resting on his weapon. You think you can defy the landowner's orders? He will not allow you to break his plow. Before Maria could respond, her brother shouted, Maria, run. They're here to intimidate us. But she stood her ground, heart racing, her voice barely above a whisper, we can't back down. We have to show them we're not afraid. The guards moved closer, their expressions twisted in mockery, but Maria refused to let fear win. This was her moment, her call. With a deep breath, she locked eyes with the crowd, willing them to see the truth of her words. But the landowner's disdainful laugh echoed in her ears, a dark reminder of her past and the fragile thread of hope she was asking them to hold on to. As the tension thickened, Maria grappled with the possibility of being squashed again, yet her resolve only grew fiercer. Would this stand be enough to ignite the fire of rebellion within her community? And what would happen if it didn't? The collective breath of the villagers wheezed around her, caught between fear and determination. The moment stretched, rippling with uncertainty. Maria realized a choice needed to be made, to risk everything in the name of unity or retreat back into silence and despair. The sun hovered on the edge of the horizon, casting long shadows, and deep within the fabric of her heart lay the faint sound of a drum beating for change, waiting for someone to give it voice. Would she be the one to ignite that spark? And as the guards approached, the air crackled with anticipation and dread, leaving a question hanging: what price would they all have to pay for their collective dreams? Maria stood firm, the heat of the guards' scrutiny prickling against her skin like unwelcome thorns. Their mocking laughter caged her thoughts. It was as if the vibrant atmosphere of possibility had dulled to a single, threatening note. But deep inside, something stirred, a pulse of rebellion that begged for her to unleash it. The crowd shifted nervously, eyes darting. She felt their fear wrap around her like a shroud. One small spark could ignite a fire that might consume the darkness around them. She opened her mouth, a hesitant breath drawn in, but the words tangled on her tongue. In that agonizing moment, she thought of all the times she had been silenced, how her dreams had dulled under the weight of despair. Listen. Maria called, her voice ringing out against the rising tension. This isn't just my fight, it's all of ours. Do you want to live in fear forever? To let them see us tremble? No. We deserve more. We can take back our future. The guards stepped closer, boots thudding against the ground. One of them drew nearer, the sneer on his face deepening. You think you're a hero? A martyr? He taunted. You'll only put your precious community in danger. Yet, her heart thudded louder than the threat. What is danger compared to giving up? What is fear compared to the love we can save? A flicker of understanding appeared among the villagers. Murmurs began, not quite words, but a soft wave of encouragement that rolled from one pair of eyes to another. That spark began to spread, Maria could see it. Maria, a voice broke through the anxious whispers. It was the young woman from earlier. Her eyes were filled with both fear and a fragile glimmer of hope. If we believe in ourselves, can we really do this? Yes. Maria said, elation shooting through her veins. We can build a sanctuary. We can reclaim this land, our land. For years we've bowed under the landowner's rule, and for what? Pain and loss. We can change that together. The guards exchanged glances, their laughter fading as the tide in the crowd turned. Someone else stepped forward, an elderly man with deeply etched lines of worry across his forehead. But if we oppose them, what will happen? What if they decide to punish us? If we remain silent, we're inviting that punishment. Every day is a fight. What if we channel that fight into something beautiful instead? With her heart racing, Maria gestured toward the fields beyond the square. Imagine a future where we've created something truly ours. A place where our dreams flourish. The intensity in her voice was palpable, wrapping the villagers in a warm embrace of shared vision. A ripple of whispers turned into nods, shaking heads of doubt began to soften into expressions of determination. But just as they began to rally, the lead guard raised his weapon slightly, eyes narrowing. You're playing a dangerous game, he warned. The landowner protects his interests fiercely. Maybe it's time someone took that risk, Maria replied, her gaze unyielding. Doubtless, fear tried to creep back in, but the glow of possibility lights began to shine brighter. She could feel it, her heart thrumming in unison with them. We can't allow ourselves to be stopped by fear, she shouted, her voice unwavering. Today, we stand together. Today we take the first step into our new destiny. The crowd erupted with a roar of agreement, swelling with fervor. Hope radiated from them like sunlight breaking through the clouds. She felt invigorated by their spirit, and disbelief began to fade into determination. As the guards hesitated, uncertainty flicked across their faces. Maria seized the moment. They were all gathered there, fueled by raw emotion and belief. This was at the moment for change. But just then, a chilling horn sounded nearby, echoing across the square as if to punctuate the crescendo of hope. An unmistakable noise that signified more trouble was approaching. What now? She wondered, her heart sinking. As the crowd quieted, they turned toward the source of the sound, anticipation rippling through the air once more. What new threat loomed just beyond? Their fragile unity? And would they be ready to face the harsh reality that could tear them apart? The moment hung in the balance, charged with uncertain destiny. The horn blared again, sharp and insistent, slicing through the tension like a knife. It sent vibrations into the ground beneath them, shaking the very earth they were standing on. Maria felt the grip of fear tighten around her heart once more, but she refused to let it choke her voice. Stay close. She shouted, scanning the square for familiar faces. She could see the young woman from before, clinging to her child, eyes wide and glistening. The elderly man still stood firm, his gaze focused, yet the tension on his face was palpable. The guards, too, were shifting, their previous bravado starting to falter as they turned to face the direction of that ominous sound. Maria could hear footsteps pounding in the distance, the kind that sent a palpable wave of dread crashing over the assembled crowd. Who is it? Someone whispered, a trembling edge to their voice. Caught between uncertainty and hope, Maria took a step forward. I don't know, she admitted, but we won't let fear drive us apart. We've come too far. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, sparking a flicker of courage deep within her. Maria steeled herself, focusing her energy on creating a wall of unity instead of fear. This is our moment, she urged, standing taller, drawing from the strength she felt growing inside of them. Whatever comes, we face it together. Just then, the crowd parted slightly, revealing a figure rushing toward them, a messenger with a wild look in his eyes. His clothes were dirt-streaked, breathless with urgency. Maria's heart raced. It's the landowner's men, he gasped, nearly collapsing as he arrived. They're marching this way, ready to take you all as examples. An uncomfortable silence settled over the villagers like a thick fog, fear creeping back into their hearts. Maria could see faces paling, hands trembling, and hope flickering like a candle flame in the wind. Examples of what? She demanded, desperation crawling into her voice. We're standing together. We're no longer just the forgotten. We're ready to fight. They'll see you as a threat, they'll crush you, the messenger pleaded, eyes darting around the crowd. Turn back. Run. Hide. Run. Maria echoed, incredulity fueling her spirit. No. This is our land. We have fought silently for too long. We will not run when we finally have a chance to fight back. A sudden cheer erupted from the crowd, like thunder rolling across the sky. It was tentative at first, but the more they rallied behind Maria's words, the bolder they became. They could feel a shift in their hearts, the possibility of something greater seeping into their resolve. Maria looked fiercely toward the guards, who had retreated slightly, their expressions a mix of surprise and concern. They had underestimated this community, thought they could intimidate and silence them forever. Are you with me? Maria shouted, her voice ringing out with an energy that banished doubt. Yes. They shouted back, growing bolder with every word. But the air was heavy with conflict as the guards stationed themselves, tightened their grips around weapons, and a defining hush fell over the crowd. The marching feet could be heard drawing closer, the linked fate of each villager hanging thickly in the air. An uneasy realization hit Maria hard. This moment was a precipice, teetering between despair and hope. She could feel change looming like a storm, wild and unpredictable, but necessary. Then, as she gazed into the crowd, her eyes fell on the face of the young mother, clutching her child tightly, lips moving silently in prayer. Maria's heart ached. She knew they couldn't go back now, they dared to dream and fight. They had to make this stand. The distant horns blared once more, a deafening reminder of the battle that lay ahead. Would their voices carry beyond that ominous sound? Would they fight for each other and for the future they envisioned? As the marchers surged into view, Maria took a deep breath. With fear and adrenaline coursing through her veins and hope igniting in her chest, she stepped forward into the fray. But as the dust settled, a chilling realization dawned on her. What if their unity wasn't enough to face the storm? Would they seize this moment of liberty, or would they crumble under the weight of retribution? Maria felt the tension coil around her, a palpable fear cloaking their brave rally. One thought echoed irresistibly in her mind: this was only the beginning. What would they be willing to sacrifice to protect their dreams? The ground trembled with the marchers' rhythm, each footfall echoing the fears that had gathered in Maria's chest. She could see them now, dark figures advancing through the dust. Her heart raced. Would their resolve withstand the impending confrontation? Hold your ground, Maria shouted, words ringing like a battle cry through the thickening tension. She could feel the pulse of the crowd, a mix of fear and courage, and sensed the shift in the air. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was something deeper, a fight for dignity, a chance to reclaim their power. The landowner's men approached, men in grim uniforms, armed and intimidating. They were the manifest of oppression, a long shadow of the past that Maria and her people were desperate to break free from. But today, they stood united, shoulders squared and hearts steeled. "Stand together!" Maria called out, locking eyes with the young mother, who now pressed her child against her, whispering reassurances. The elderly man beside her clenched his fists, determination igniting the already fierce lines on his face. Every person in the square was bearing the weight of this moment, their past and their future, all colliding here. The lead guard stepped forward, a sneer curling his lips. "You think your pathetic gathering means anything? You're fools if you think you can challenge us." Maria swallowed hard. "We're not afraid of you. We're not going to bury our dreams for your comfort." A ripple of murmurs broke out among the villagers behind her, a mix of uncertainty with sparks of defiance. One by one, they raised their voices, shouting back, "We will not be silenced." The guard's eyes widened, surprised by the sudden uprising of voices he deemed powerless. It wasn't just anger he felt, it was apprehension. The realization dawned that the oppressed were rising, empowered by something he had never anticipated. It lit a fire in Maria's chest, pushing her to step closer to the front. "Think about your families," she called to the guards, her voice cutting through the air. "Your wives, your children. They deserve a future filled with laughter and opportunity, not the fear of men with swords." With every word she spoke, Maria could feel a shift in the atmosphere. The crowd behind her gathered strength. Their outcry was more than mere protest, it was a proclamation of their right to exist and thrive. The guards shuffled, their feet faltering, uncertainty creeping in. Maria took another step, emboldened. "You can choose to keep our voices down, but you cannot silence our hearts. We will fight with everything we have for the future, for our children, for this land." Suddenly, the young mother stepped forward, her voice trembling but warm. "I refuse to let my child grow up in fear. We deserve better." The elderly man joined her, raising his voice, adding weight and history. "This land belongs to all of us. It is not just yours to take." A chorus of voices rose, weaving together like threads, forming a fabric of courage. For a moment, the guards hesitated, the tide of emotion shifting in their favor. They were no longer just a helpless group but a force of conviction fueled by shared pain and shared dreams. But before hope could fully take shape, the lead guard signaled to his men, and the tension snapped like a taut wire. They advanced, weapons raised, but Maria didn't back down. She stood resolute, ready to stare down whatever might come next. As both sides braced for the inevitable clash, the air thickened with anticipation. This was more than just a battle of might, it was a clash of ideologies, an eruption of hope against fear. And deep inside, Maria knew whatever happened next would change everything. Would their dreams survive the confrontation, or would they become victims of a cruel history repeating itself? As shadows loomed and fate hung in the balance, Maria took a deep breath, ready for whatever the outcome might bring. Would her courage inspire others enough to stand and protect the life they had dared to dream? The lead guard pushed through the ranks, his eyes scanning the crowd, seeking to dismantle the unity forming against them. Fear radiated off the villagers, a tug of war between hope and despair. Maria could feel each heartbeat echoing like a drum, the rhythm tying them to the ground, pulling them together just as much as it threatened to tear them apart. "Now!" The guard barked, and in an instant, chaos erupted. With shields raised high, the guards moved forward like a rolling wave of malice. It felt like the world slowed for Maria. Each clash of metal echoed in her ears, a haunting reminder of injustices long ignored. But as the first guard lunged, she steadied her ground, feeling the weight of her community behind her. "Together!" she shouted, reaching for the hands of those beside her. The young mother grasped her arm tightly, her child nestled against her chest, eyes wide with terror. The first guard swung, but Maria ducked just in time, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She rallied her people around her with fierce determination. "Stand firm. We will not fall apart." A few brave souls surged forward, confronting the guards with raw emotion bubbling from deep within. The elderly man, emboldened, shouted, "We are not cattle to be corralled. We have voices." Maria felt that love, that unwavering spirit stronger than steel. It fueled her, infusing her with hope. She glanced back and saw courage sparking in faces that once looked resigned. They were more than a congregation, they were a family. In the scuffle, Maria turned, her gaze locked onto the lead guard. "You think you can break us?" she shouted. "We are rooted here. Even if your weapons strike us down, our spirit will not die." His sneer faltered. For an instant, doubt crossed his face. Maria seized the moment, stepping forward, despite the chaos around them. "What kind of man are you, to strike the weakest among us? To threaten families who only seek to live unafraid?" A murmur spread through the ranks of both the villagers and the guards, a shared hesitation that crackled in the air. The young mother beside her, determined, held her child high. "Look! We seek a future for them, for our children. Love unites us. Fear only divides." The lead guard hesitated. Was it possible, even for him, to feel the weight of those words? It was a flicker in a storm, but a flicker nonetheless. Still, the moment shattered. The guards regrouped, resolving to push forward. "You're nothing but rabble," one of them shouted, charging forward, the weight of cruelty behind him. But Maria wasn't deterred. If this was to be a fight, she would lead with love. "Then let us show you what rabble can do when they stand united." With that, she lunged forward, drawing the brave hearts behind her and crashing into the fray. Her breath hitched, excitement and terror swirling inside her. Each movement was more than just fighting, it felt like a dance of dreams, a choreography of hope clashing against tyranny. The clamor of voices, the cries of pain, and the chants of resolve melded into an anthem of resistance. But just as hope surged forward, a shattering sound pierced through a gunshot fired into the air, a warning that couldn't be ignored. The crowd froze. Maria's heart sank as she turned, dread gripping her. "Where do we go from here?" she breathed, feeling vulnerability wrestle with her determination. As the dust settled and clashes echoed of what was yet to come, Maria wondered if they could keep their unity, their love, their dreams alive long enough to witness the dawn after this long night. Amid the chaos and uncertainty, a question lingered. Would fear break through their resolve, or would their hearts stay fierce in the face of darkness? In the breath-holding silence that followed the gunshot, Maria's mind raced. Would unity hold? The villagers flinched, their eyes wide, trembling at the sudden violence. She could feel the collective heartbeat of her community, thumping wildly at the edge of fear and determination. They had come this far, they could not waver now. "Stay together," she called, her voice rising above the panic. It was all she could do to instill courage when everything felt so very fragile. The guards, emboldened by their show of force, laughed, cruel convictions sharpening their movements. Maria's heart fired into a beat of rebellion. With every snicker, every jeer directed at the villagers, she felt her resolve tighten. They were not just bodies in the dirt, they were souls driven by love. It was a love worth fighting for. "Don't let them see your fear," a voice thundered from the back. It was the local blacksmith, wielding his hammer like it was an extension of himself. The crowd rallied, instinctively grasping the energy his words ignited. "We stand for our families. For our future." Slowly, the current of unity surged back among them. Hands joined, fists clutched. Children were set down to form a wall of protection. Maria stood front and center, radiating strength she almost didn't feel. She could taste the fear metallic, bitter, but she also met it with the sweetness of hope. Then came the second guard, swinging with his spear, but the villagers responded with a wall of grit. It was a chaotic ballet, they swayed in unison, absorbing the blows while maintaining their line. A chorus of shoves and shouts. Maria felt each strike in her bones, yet the love inside her hardened her like armor. Now! She shouted again. Push back! And they did, moving forward with a sudden rush, hearts thunderous, desperation fueling their raw spirits. It was a brilliant surge of emotion, of courage, of undeniable love for each other. But then, a new noise filled the air, cutting through the clamor. Someone was weeping. A father crumpled to his knees, holding his wounded son tightly. Time froze as Maria's heart shattered. That was the moment everything shifted. It was no longer about standing up just to resist, it was about keeping their future safe, the children who deserved to grow up in freedom, unencumbered by oppression. We fight for them. Maria yelled, not caring if the guards heard her. For the laughter that should fill these streets and the dreams that should never die. Suddenly, she felt an undeniable strength climbing through her, springing from the heart of every villager surrounding her. Hope sparked into an inferno. They pressed on, moving as a unified force, pushing back against the wave of guards. Don't lose hope. Echoed throughout the crowd like a mantra, lifting spirits as they bought time against tyranny. Yes, they were just a group of villagers, but they were fierce, and their message rang true. They were not alone, and love would not be silenced. Just when it seemed the guards might relent, the commander barked another order, eyes dark and unswayed by the resolve before him. Make an example of them. He roared, reaching for something at his side. The tension was electric and unbearable. With that thin sliver of command, Maria's stomach twisted. What was he about to do? As the first sparks of something serious ignited, Maria barely had time to react. The fate of her village hung by a thread, and desperation thundered through her. Together! She shouted again, fear coiling in her stomach, but hope urging her on. What if this was the moment that changed everything? Would they rise or would they be crushed under the weight of defiance? The answer danced just out of reach, and Maria's breath hitched in her throat as the guards advanced. The next moment could mean everything, and she felt her heart race as she braced for what was about to come. Would they stand firm or shatter into pieces? A fierce energy surged through the crowd as the guards began to close in. Maria's heart drummed against her ribs, each beat echoing her fear and determination. The commander's intentions hung heavy in the air like an approaching storm, thick with the possibility of devastation. She couldn't let that fear consume her, not now. Stand strong. She urged, her voice trembling slightly but rising with urgency. This is our moment. We are not just fighting for today, but for every tomorrow. With a fierce cry, the group surged forward, a wave of humanity pressing against the guards. Maria was surprised by her own strength, feeling the pulse of her community coursing through her veins. Together, they moved as one, an unbreakable line of hope against oppression. Yet with every step they took, there was a shadow, a darkness creeping closer. The guards swung their weapons recklessly, but the villagers, filled with passion and purpose, absorbed the blows in a tide of flesh and spirit. They weren't just defending, they were avenging. In the chaos, someone shouted, "The children." Maria's eyes darted through the throng, spotting the little ones cowering at the back. Instinctively, she called out to her younger brother, "Miguel, stay close to me." He nodded, fear glimmering in his eyes, and blushed with pride as he stepped into line behind her. Then came a deafening clash as the first villager fell, struck down by a guard's heavy boot. Gasps swept through the crowd, but Maria could not let despair take hold. "For our friend! For our families!" She shouted, her voice igniting the fire of resilience in their hearts. With renewed ferocity, they pushed against the guards. The shouts turned into a choir of rallying cries, echoing through the hollow streets. Each word of unity was a repellent against despair, each chant a reminder of what they stood to lose and what they fought to protect. But then real fear settled in when the guards pulled back, regrouping. Maria caught sight of their commander commanding his men like chess pieces, a sinister glint in his eye. She felt the world slow for a moment. What are they planning? A sickening dread twisted in her stomach. Before she could react, the commander raised an arm. The guards halted, steeling themselves. A heavy silence fell, thick and expectant. Maria could hear her own breath, hear the murmur of her neighbors around her. Then he stepped forward, brandishing a weapon, his voice cutting through the hush. "I will show you the consequences of defiance," he thundered. Everything inside Maria screamed for her to flee, to save herself and Miguel, but she steeled her gaze. "We will not be silenced," she cried out, gripping her brother's hand tightly. "This is our home. We fight for our future." At that moment, something within her ignited a fierce light that radiated outward. It caught the eyes of those around her. The man who had lost his son was now standing tall again, rage and grief fueling his stance. One by one, the villagers began to rise, hands clenched into fists, ready to act. And just as the tension broke like a string about to snap, they surged forward again, a unified front, resolute that their love, their hope, would overwhelm the darkness. But in that chaotic moment, as the battle loomed large and fierce, a shadow broke from within the commander's ranks, someone familiar, someone unexpected. Maria's heart raced anew as she strained to see, could it be? "Who is that?" The question hung in the air, pregnant with possibility and dread. What would it mean for them all? The tides of battle were about to turn, but in which direction? Maria squinted against the chaos, trying to piece together the figure emerging from the guards. As the shadows lifted, a familiar face began to take shape. Her breath caught in her throat. "Is that Sophia?" A surge of confusion flooded her. Sophia had been taken months ago, lost to the very forces they now stood against. The crowd hesitated, caught between the surge of adrenaline and the disbelief of seeing her old friend. But Maria felt hope spark within her. "Sophia!" she cried, stepping forward against the tide of chaos, pulling Miguel along with her. As Sophia drew closer, the anguish in her eyes mixed with a fierce determination. "Maria!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the din. "I'm here to help. They're planning something, we must warn everyone." In an instant, Maria's heart raced anew, but this time, it was ignited by possibility. "What do we do?" she asked, grabbing Sophia's arm. "Follow me," Sophia urged, glancing back at the guards who were finally regrouping. For a moment, they fell into step with each other, weaving through the chaos as if pulled by an invisible thread of connection forged in shared pain. "I overheard them talking," Sophia continued, breathless. "They're going to unleash their fiercest weapon against us." What do you mean?" Maria felt a chill skate down her spine. "They've got fire. They plan to burn the square and trap everyone inside." Her voice trembled slightly, but her resolve was unshakable. "We need to turn the tide. If we can save the children, we can save ourselves." A surge of panic shot through Maria as she thought back to Miguel, gripping her hand tightly, innocently trusting in her strength. "The children," she whispered, her heart breaking for the little ones, forgotten amid this clash. "We have to protect them." Sophia nodded, and together they began shouting. "To the back! The children!" Their voices cut through the crowd, rising above the turmoil, and soon people began to listen. Parents rushed forward, gathering their children close, while others began to form a protective circle, ready to face whatever was coming. "Listen!" Maria shouted again, igniting the fire of unity once more. "We have to hold our ground. They think they can divide us with fear, but we are stronger together." Her words hung in the air, electrifying the group, drawing more courage from the corners of their hearts. The guards shifted uneasily, sensing the determination blooming in the crowd. The commander, who had been watching with growing frustration, barked orders with fury. But Maria felt the tension balance a tipping point between hope and despair. Together, bolstered by Sophia's return, they strategized quickly, using the pillars of the market square as their refuge. "We need to trap them as they advance," Sophia suggested, adrenaline rushing through her. Breaths deepened as Maria caught sight of Miguel's small face, eyes wide with a mix of terror and fierce loyalty. She knelt down, taking his face in her hands. "Whatever happens, you stay close to me. You hear?" His nod felt like a promise, sealing the bond between them. And then, as if the heavens themselves were watching, the first light of dawn broke through the darkened sky. A collective gasp wrung itself from the crowd. Hope blazed alongside fear, and Maria felt the heat of battle build within her. But just as they began to fortify their defenses, a boom echoed in the distance, a signal, a warning. What would come next? The moment was thick with anticipation. Maria's heart thudded in her chest as she looked to Sophia, then back to the crowd. There was no turning back now. They stood together, poised at the precipice. And then, a chilling laugh pierced through the silence, followed by a voice dripping with malice. "You think you can outrun fate?" Maria shivered. The real fight was about to begin. The atmosphere crackled with tension as the guards moved to encircle them. Maria could feel the weight of impending danger pressing closer, an invisible hand around her throat. But she stood firm, eyes locked onto the commander who had unleashed the chaos. "I will not let you take our future," she shouted, her voice breaking but determined. The villagers rallied, tightening their grip on their makeshift defenses, rallying behind her words of resolve. The guard commander smirked, his eyes darting toward the gathered families. "You think these hollow words can shield you from the flames of consequence?" The threat hung thick in the air, a rancid reminder of fear that had always kept them restrained. But this time, Maria felt it, fear transforming into something fiercer, an unyielding desire to protect, to fight for freedom. "We're not afraid of you," she screamed, channeling every ounce of her conviction. "You're here to intimidate. Just look at us. We will rise together." In a moment that felt suspended in reality, she turned back to her people, seeing their faces filled with determination. Miguel stood strong beside her, hand in hand with the young mother and her child. More villagers joined them, shoulders squared. They were ready to stand together. The commander moved forward menacingly, drawing closer. "Then let us see if your reckless bravado can withstand the heat." At his command, guards stepped back, forming a tight circle, shielding their weapons ready to unleash whatever darkness they possessed. Suddenly, Maria felt a surge of insight. She glanced at Sophia, who was whispering frantically to the villagers at the far side of the square, eyes fierce with purpose. "The provisions," Sophia shouted. "Use them to create barriers. We can't let them close in." With new fervor, villagers scurried to grab the remnants of their farm supplies, barrels, sacks of grain, even crates. Resources that had once represented hope were now transformed into something they could deploy. "Form a line. Create a wall." Maria's voice rang out, threading through the crowd. She could see doubts begin to lift as resilience poured over them like morning light. They began to craft barriers from their supplies, working furiously against the growing shadows of their oppressors. But the guards advanced in a rush, shields held high, their mockery ringing through the air like daggers. "We're coming to collect what's ours." Maria felt the unity around her solidify, an electric heartbeat. "Together!" she cried, and everyone echoed, voices climbing over each other in a resounding chant. "Together! Together!" With a sudden burst of collective spirit, they pushed forward, using the barriers as both protection and arms of rebellion, as the guards closed in. The clash began, pulses beating heavy around the square, echoing the sounds of defiance, shouts, cries, and the thundering charge of feet against dust. As she fought back against the encroaching line, Maria spotted the guard commander flanking towards her. Fear clawed at her belly, but she held her ground. "You'll have to fight us all," she yelled, adrenaline coursing through her. "Fools!" he sneered, advancing. But before he could strike, an unexpected blast echoed muffled from behind him. Fire lit up the square, roaring across the space like an unleashed beast. Hands flew to cover faces, and Maria shielded Miguel, locking eyes with Sophia as their hearts raced with shock. The guards stumbled back, confused. "Retreat!" commanded the commander, but panic quickly spread like wildfire among their ranks. Using the moment of disarray, Maria turned to her people. Push! Now! This is our chance! She surged forward with a flash of courage, heat lining her veins as hope and determination propelled her onward. The villagers followed, fighting with the wild fervor of hearts reborn. Side by side, they broke through the guard-S formation, forcing their way into the square like ocean waves, crashing back against the tide of oppression. Each step they took was more than a fight, it was a declaration, each blow against their oppressors more than just resistance, it was a promise for their children and for the future they dreamed of. And as they broke through, an image raced through Maria's mind, a sunrise breaking through the clouds, revealing a new day with promises of laughter and life. For our future. She urged, and they rallied, pressing deeper into the battering storm, a united front against the past that sought to chain them down. Together, they had risen from shadows into light, and no force could extinguish that flame. As the sun began to peek over the horizon, illuminating the remnants of their struggle, Maria felt change transformed into a voice for her community, a guiding light among the chaos. They had reclaimed their power together, not as individuals but as a family forged through fiery adversity. And standing tall, hands still linked with Miguel and Sofia, she knew in that moment, they would not just survive but thrive. They would build what they dreamed of slowly, surely, with every ounce of love and strength in their hearts. The fight was far from over, and challenges still loomed ahead, but they had faced darkness and had come alive. Their journey would continue, etched in the hearts of every villager, not just as a tale of despair, but as a story of relentless hope, brave spirits, and undying unity. This was just the beginning. So remember, dear friends, if you are moved by stories like these of courage, transformation, and the strength of unity, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss the next exclusive tales waiting for you. Leave a like now to fuel this unforgettable journey and comment your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. And please, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together, we can spread hope and inspire change like never before. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting our mission through these actions.